So I brought this for you, and there is also one about the Dutch people, because we have very good relation with the Dutch people from 1710. With Mr. Kettler. He was East Indian ambassador, and he came to visit Lahore to meet the Mughal emperor. Then he met also many Sikhs. So since then we have a very good relation with the Dutch people. And so this is all for you.
So something
my work
over the weekend.
My work. And if you want to have one copy extra for your friend, for the government, then I can give you the same.
Or I address myself to you and see where I can get more, because as I told you, I was liberated by the Sikhs in Indonesia. I was 3.5 years in the prison camp there, and in Jakarta, it was then called Batavia. And we were liberated by the Sikhs, and my first memories, well, of the camp, of course, which were terrible, but the first good thing in my life were the Sikhs, because they invited me every day to their camp. They had the camp a little bit outside our camp, and I spent there, well, I think about 6-7 months together with them. And it was the first time that I got proper food, and I got a little uniform which they made for me. So I always say, you know, the best period after the war was the period that I spent with the Sikhs, and I always have had a deep admiration for the fact that they were the ones who liberated that part of Java, especially, of course, that they liberated us after all the hardships, you know, of the war. So you see that it's more than just interest, historical interest, there's also personal interest in what you have accomplished, and I'm very interested in reading them.
Because it's part of our religion, it's our duty also, because our religion teaches us to help the poor people, the people who are in need, people who are weak, and people who are under oppression. And so they just performed their duty. They were there in Indonesia, and so as a matter of respect for the human rights, so they did their duty, and they were fighting for British.
I know.
And you know, Britain and the Netherlands, they were together. So Dutch people requested them to go there and to help the needy people. So that's why they were here.
Very impressive, and you have all, let's say, you have done all the research, I presume, because to write 2 these volumes, you know, it must have taken years.
18 years.
18 years.
18 years.
And doing all the time also research into, let's say, who or which units were fighting where. I presume that you also have offered it here to the Historical Society and to the Dutch archives and so on, so that they're aware of your enormous opus.
I have presented my book to our Honorable Prime Minister, Mark Rutte. Before that, I have also presented to Mr. Balkande. And also to some MPs and some ministers. This is my work now, to highlight the people that the Sikhs were there. They have to do nothing with the war, but as a duty, as they were fighting for Great Britain. So they were there and they performed their duty in a very good way, and we are glad. And now that's the reason I'm here.
Well, I feel very honored that you have come here to offer these books. And of course, I cannot promise you that I will start reading all the 1,000 pages, but I certainly will read it because, as I say, I have a personal interest in, let's say, studying the situation of the Sikhs and seeing, you know, what you did exactly where. So it's also for my historical interest in general. I think it's an enrichment. And I'm very glad that you came here and offered me the books. And wherever I can, I will mention it to people, and draw their attention to this is World War I and this is World War II.
In World War I, Sikhs have fought in 19 countries outside India. And in World War II, they have fought in 25 different countries outside India. And they were 33% in the Indian Army, British Indian Army. And in the Second World War, they were 35% in the British Indian Army.
So it's very impressive all the work you have done. Fantastic. And how did you go? You went to all the archives and got it there together, and the pictures also?
Yes. I went to all the archives, and also, we have the Commonwealth War Graves Commission in England who maintain all those graves and monuments throughout the world. So they have helped me a lot. And but most of the cemetery has been visited by me personally. So, well, it must have been a fantastic work, and you must be proud of what you have accomplished in this period. But you still, so you have lived all that time in the Netherlands and did your research, let's say, of course, traveling around, but also while working here for IBM, you at the same time dedicated to yourself to this work. And, yes, because I was working as a accounting analyst by IBM Netherlands, and I have 42 holidays. And during those times, I used to visit Europe and Middle East and all those countries. And it took me 18 years. But still, there are a lot of names of the Sikh soldiers who died, but they are not recorded, and I'm trying my best to locate them, and in my next edition I put there also. But 83,000 Sikhs have given their lives for the freedom of mankind in both world wars. And it's pity that Western world, especially, they did not know about it.
Not aware of everything you have contributed to this.
And now I came to know that you are also involved with the Sikh army who helped you and who rescued you, and you have seen them, you have seen their behavior also.
And one of my mates in Harvard Law School was also a Sikh. So we had a lot of contact, and of course I know a lot about your religion and your view on the world because of that friend of mine.
That's very.
So you see, it has gone on and on.
That's an honor to hear all this, because our religion is not so old, 500 years old. But we are trying our best to follow the principles of Sikh religion also, which believe in equality, respect for women, and work hard and share with others. And our life is for the weak people, for the people who are in need. And that was the reason that twice, in World War I and in World War II, we came all the way from Punjab, and so we helped the suffering people.
And let's say after the Second World War, were you among those, let's say, asking and demanding freedom and independence for the British, or was that largely more the Buddhist side?
Well, it's unfortunate that in 1947, when the time came for our freedom,
to separate,
but leader like Mahatma Gandhi and Nehru, they promised us, and they said that we will create a state in the north of India where you can also have your freedom. but unfortunately they did not keep their promises, and the time was over. And then you have seen that we were demanding more autonomy, more rights for the Sikhs, and then they sent the Indian army to our holy place, Golden Temple, and they have killed, nearly 200,000 Sikhs so far. They wanted to teach us a lesson. They want to break our bone that we will never, ask for independence or for freedom, and that's what it has happened.
But I presume that this is well received also in India, and as a tribute, so to say, as a contribution to the effort by, let's say, India as a whole, and specifically by you, let's say, to allow peace in Europe.
It has been delivered to mostly the ambassadors of India here in Europe, in Belgium, even in Turkey. Yes, because the Battle of Gallipoli is very famous, and there we...
Everybody knows the Battle of Gallipoli,
So we together with Australian and New Zealanders, French people, English people, so we fought that war for 9 months. And we pushed the Turkey people out of that region. And so book has been presented also to the ambassador of India in Italy, and in France, and in England, and also I was invited by the Dutch embassy in New Delhi, and she told me that
I saw the picture with Mrs. Cooling.
She told me that you are her brother.
No, that goes a bit far. She worked for me many years ago.
Okay.
Because I, as a Minister of Foreign Affairs, I had always personal assistants, and she at one time was my personal assistant for a while. So in the, how shall I say it, in a kind way, she was like a sister to me, but not in blood.
In blood relation.
No. Well, she has a lot of regards for you, and the first thing she told me, Mr. Sikh, you are welcome here, and Mr. Boat, he is my brother. So in this way, in order to show me the respect for you, she told me that you are her brother. And I was well received there, and they have also released my books. The whole embassy was there, and the press was there, and it is also on their Facebook now.
Oh, very good.
Royal Kingdom of the Netherlands. And in India, it has been well received by the Shromani Gurdwara Prabandhak Committee. That is the organization of the Sikhs who control all the Gurdwaras in India.
So it is being, let's say, distributed all over India, and everybody can. And the advantage is, of course, that the whole world speaks English and reads English. So you have a tremendous audience and readership, and that is, of course, very encouraging for any author.
The strange thing is that we were less than 1% from the Indian subcontinent.
I know.
Pakistan, India, Bangladesh. So that was one Indian subcontinent. And less than 1%. And but our contribution is so much. 8 Victoria Cross and many IOM, that is Indian Order of Merit, Indian Distinguished Service Medals. So that has been won by the Sikhs, even more than the Canadian people, or even the Australian people. We have one more.
That is a testimony, you say, to the courage, perseverance of the six regiments which partook in this terrible war. But as I say, personally, I owe a lot to you. And say with very much gratitude recall those moments, the funny thing is when you're 9 or 10 years old, you know, these are things that you are, even when you were young, these you retain, these things you don't forget. So, also because it inaugurated the better times of my life after the bad times. You know? And so I will always be grateful for what you have done in Indonesia, what you have done for us, my family, especially for me, because I was really very well received. And I remember still it was a very nice commander, a Sikh commander. And since I used to come there every day, he said after a while, well, we will make a little uniform for you, and you really belong to this.
Okay.
So that, I'm sure you appreciate this very much. I'm very grateful that you took the trouble of coming here and presenting me this book. I will see Mr. Balkenende, I occasionally see Mr. Rutte, so I will tell them that I too received this book.
They have my books, and I also got a letter from them thanking. They have a lot of respect also for the Sikh community here. Because so you were liberated by the Sikhs. How old was you then?
Then 9 years old, and that's why I say with 9 you have already a very clear memory, you know, of things that are happening around you. And although, well, it was fairly young, it was also, let's say, one of the first good moments after a terrible camp period. There's many hardships, lack of food, cruelties, etc. And to have survived that and to, let's say, have been strengthened again was also because I got very good food, and I still remembered, you know, eggs and bacon and what they used to be called corned beef, which there also was in the brothers. So I also went there and cooked my meals with the Sikhs, which was a very pleasant experience. So you see, I strengthened mentally and physically because of what you did in those first months, you know, after the war was over in Indonesia.
Were there also some other European community there?
Well, it was mainly Dutch because, of course, the Dutch East Indies, you know, were under control of the Netherlands. Later on, we got the British. Who came over from Singapore. My father, for example, was prisoner of war and built the River Kwai Bridge. He built the Burma CL line, as it was then called. So he returned after the war in 1946-47. But via Singapore, and from Singapore came many British, but let's say in the Netherlands, East Indies, there were only Dutch. Basically only Dutch. There were for Germans and Swiss and British the usual sprinkling of nationalities, but let's say 98% Dutch, and of course the Indonesian people itself, a large majority. And unfortunately, at the moment, let's say relations between the Netherlands and Indonesia are excellent, like let's say India and Great Britain. As minister, I was the one who made the last step to improve relationships by acknowledging the date of independence as 1945. And so, if you want to hold it. Ever since we have excellent relations. Let's say here in the Netherlands, since we started in Indonesia around 1518, 1590. We had, of course, a very long relationship, and many Dutch people, because we used to intermarry. Many of the Dutch men that were sent to Indonesia, as of the beginning of 1600 at regular intervals, were alone, and so they got married to Indonesian women,
and vice versa.
So you see here in the Netherlands, and we always say there is not a family that doesn't have a special link to Indonesia, you know, either because they got married or because they worked there or whatever. And there's a huge Indonesian society, and I'm myself a member of the board member of the Indonesian Netherlands Society. We have regular meetings. If the Indonesian ministers come here, we receive them and we organize things for them, and vice versa. If the Dutch ministers go to Indonesia, there's also a parallel organization. So you see that sometimes good things come out of bad events.
Yeah, that's true. But Indonesia and Dutch people had very good relation, and till now they are very friendly.
Yeah,
I must say.
absolutely.
But when the independence movement started there,
That was a very bad period.
and then what happened? Was there any role of the Sikhs also to protect
No,
people?
the Sikhs protected, let's say, against the Indonesians, because, let's say, the rebellion broke out almost immediately after the revelation. That's to say, the 15th of August 1945 was the date, that the Japanese, let's say, declared, first of all, ceasefire, later on, of course, the peace agreements. And then you get a period which lasted about 1949, that many of the younger Indonesians started a very brutal and very cruel rebellion, killing everybody that didn't agree with them. It's a little bit like IS nowadays. They killed Dutch and fellow Indonesians, etc. So
even the mixed family also.
yes, even their own people, if you didn't agree with Sukarno or etc., they were mostly young men between 18 and 22, 23, who took up the arms that the Japanese had left behind, and the Japanese armed these people on purpose in the hope that they would then remain or
Come back.
Now that failed. We fought them, basically three, what we called police actions, but they were not police actions. They were basically just outright wars. And that has been, of course, a very black page in our history, because we should have been wise like the British and have said right away, okay, it's over. But for us, Indonesia was so much part of our own country, of our own structure, that we could not imagine surviving without Indonesia. And that is, but finally, in 1949, and we signed what were called the Round Table Agreements. My father was part of that delegation, because when he returned, he immediately was involved in this whole, let's say, transfer of sovereignty initiative. And he was one of the signatories, of co-signatories of these agreements. But of course it lasted a long time, because we never acknowledged that 1945 had been the date of independence when Sukarno proclaimed Indonesian independence. And so I was the one who, in 2005, went to Indonesia to officially, the 60th birthday of Indonesia, declare that we Netherlands acknowledged as formal date of independence, etc. So that in that way we turned the last page of the colonial period, and ever since the relations have been excellent between the countries. So that even the little annoyances, and this was a big annoyance, I mean this really was a hindrance in, let's say, understanding, working together. It had been very superficial and all of a sudden blossomed. And say till today, we understand each other very well. I mean, if I come to Indonesia, I'm of course very well received, many friends there.
Okay.
Yeah, I always say your motherland, you never forget it. It's part and parcel there where you were born, where you spent your young years, even if they were not very likable young years. It still leaves a mark on your soul, and that is something you retain, just as you retain and remember the good things, like being liberated by your people.
Okay. There was a line of control between the Dutch people and the Indonesian people.
No, there was not. Yes, there was, because there was, like in every country, you had, let's say, Indonesians who wanted to continue the relationship with the Dutch, but with a special setup, a sort of a cohabitation formula, sort of, let's say, Indonesia taking care of its own internal affairs, and the Netherlands still being as a sort of commonwealth power But then Sukarno, who had turned communist, more or less refused any deal, any compromise. And so after these bitter wars, which we fought there with many, many losses, we finally said in December 49, it's over, we hand over sovereignty to the Indonesians. Well, for us, let's say, the birth date of Indonesia was 49, December 49, for the Indonesians it was 45.
Yeah.
And so I was the one who said, okay, the Dutch people acknowledge, recognize Indonesia as existing as of 1945. We have made a mistake. I offered apologies on behalf of the Dutch population to what had happened there. And say that marked a new era. We turned the page and we started all afresh. And I say that.
I have found some documents that the line of control that was protected by the Sikhs.
Mm-hmm.
I have many photos that the Sikhs are patrolling that area.
Yeah, they were patrolling, and that is, let's say, they guaranteed our security, our safety against the Indonesian rebellious forces that went on, because, let's say, other parts of Java, the Sikhs were not present, and the British weren't present either. Many people were slaughtered indiscriminately, because there was nobody, let's say, to retain them, to control them. And,
yes, I have here some pictures from that area. Maybe you know this gentleman also.
let's see. Mr. Luns, yeah.
So he was your colleague?
Yeah. No, let's see Mr.
I think so.
I know Mr. Luns very well, of course. Yeah. Zwaar te zien. Well, I was still a young diplomat at that time, of course, and I knew Mr. Luns, but...
because our foreign minister was Sardar Swaran Singh.
Yeah.
So he was a very intelligent man, and I came to know from Mr. Hans van Mierlo.
Hans van Mierlo, yeah.
From D66.
Yeah.
Because he was foreign minister and he met Swaran Singh many times, and he was a great admirer of him. Yeah. I have somewhere those pictures, but they are weird.
Let's see, there are many pictures in the book.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I will come to that point later on. I will find them. You have been the foreign minister of Netherlands.
That's right.
Yeah. From which time to which time?
From 2003 till 2007. So 10 years ago I finished as foreign minister.
Okay.
Yeah.
And as a foreign minister, you have heard also about the problem in India, especially the Sikh problem.
Yeah.
Because as I told you that they have attacked our holy place with tanks and helicopters and killed thousands of innocent pilgrims.
Yes.
And so, what was your reaction when you have seen all those attack on Golden Temple and killing of Sikh people by putting tires on their
We have seen all the pictures, of course. Well, strong condemnation and an appeal, to respect, in accordance with the Charter of the United Nations and the Human Rights Conventions. I remember pleading, for giving the Sikhs, and I think we still follow that policy, a status inside India where they not of self-control, self-government, because that India does not want to accept, but a larger degree of autonomy. I think we have always pleaded, for more autonomy for groups like the Sikhs, the more so since they are a peaceful grouping. They're not rebellious, they don't try, to tear India apart. Also at that time, I must say, very strictly that Indian ministers and Indian diplomats can be somewhat arrogant at times because they think they're a very important big nation, and so it's not easy to communicate with them. And of course, everything also at that time was concentrated around the troubles with Pakistan. They were again, because I visited India and I visited Pakistan, because we were then very much engaged in Afghanistan. So we had 15,000 men, deployed. And since Pakistan was a country that shielded many of the Taliban rebels, we of course were then again attacked by people from Pakistan. And Pakistan said already, no, that's not true. We had a lot of troops at the border, it's impossible. But we knew that the Taliban fled over the border into Pakistan, and at night they went back into Afghanistan territory. But at the same time, you had the trouble, of course, over Kashmir. So most of the discussions I had there was over Kashmir, and of course over the atomic spy, Mr. Khan, who then resided in Pakistan. And of course, he had stolen all the documents here from the Netherlands. And,
oh yeah, yes.
That was. We knew that he was living in Pakistan, that he was being protected by the military. And I talked to the generals, I talked to the president, but to no avail. We tried to mediate a little bit in the issue around Kashmir, but that is something, I think that it's almost like the Middle East conflict. Eventually it will be solved, because it's my firm conviction, and I've lived through so many things like Cyprus, I've lived through Rhodesia, I've lived through all these things which we thought impossible, South Africa, and still, time in the end corrects this kind of situation. But it needs a lot of patience, a lot of wisdom, and willingness on parties, to really needed to be reasonable. And you see it with the formation of the Dutch government at the moment, how difficult it is if people say no, to get them on the right track. So that's what we keep working for.
Dutch government or Dutch people would also like to help or negotiate, take part in any sort of negotiation to solve the Sikh problem also.
No, I don't think so. We have let's say, a basic philosophy of not getting involved in internal matters of other countries. That's a sacred principle that you find everywhere. In other words, that is something that has to be arranged internally, by the Indian people together with the If you see what's happening at our southern borders with Syria, Iran, Iraq, if you see what's happening with Mr. Putin on our eastern borders, and the threat towards the Baltic countries and a few East European countries, that all the attention, politically speaking, is going to how do we keep Europe afloat, how do we deal with Brexit, how do we deal with Mr. Trump, the Pope this morning, and will then travel to Hamburg for the G20 meeting, and these are colossal problems that we have to solve first. We try not to meddle too much. Also, as a former colonial power in Indonesia, we have to be very careful, let's say, the way we interfere or try to interfere. That does not mean that we are not very much on your side. I mean, as far as feelings is concerned and support, I think the Dutch government always has been on the side of the Sikhs, because we know your religious convictions. You know that you, let's say, politically speaking, you are a true ally and a peaceful ally. So there's nothing wrong with that. But of course, then to get mixed in or to get involved in, let's say, internal conflicts, that's not something we will do.
Well, you have mentioned about Kashmir problem, and you said, well, the problem will be over, will be solved.
Eventually it will be solved.
Eventually.
God may know when.
Okay. Netherlands would like to play an important role also to solve this Kashmir problem.
No, it's the same thing, same philosophy. We know that it is useless at the moment if, let's say, where we try to be active is more in the Middle East, let's say between Palestine people and between Israel. That is the kind of thing that is closer to our borders, that's closer to our interests. And anyway, the feeling is that there are some conflicts which at the moment cannot be solved. I mean, they have been festering for such a long period in each time, because I remember that I had very good connections with my Pakistani colleague, and he called me because I had shown my interest, and said that I thought that if they maneuver this way or that way, etc. So then he called me, well, for about a year, 1.5 years, so every month, every 2 months, to report on progress. And there was progress for a while, and we thought, well, hey, finally, and then all of a sudden, on the moment that the parties are getting closer together, there's again such an outbreak at the borders, a few soldiers kill each other, whether to provoke or whether by accident, nobody knows, but the result is then that everything that you can try to construct, in a positive sense, it breaks down. So that's how life goes.
Well, I understand. Because you have to be very careful, and as a matter of fact, before the British went there,
Yes.
There was a Sikh kingdom in north of India, and that lasted for 50 years. So you can imagine whole of Punjab, Pakistan, and some part of Afghanistan, Kashmir, Tibet. That was part of the Sikh kingdom. So the British took over from us. And so when we talk about the freedom of India, our contribution of the Sikhs is more than 80%. The people who have been hanged, the people who went to jail, the people whose property was
confiscated.
And so 80% belongs to our Sikh community. But what is happening with us, that we feel betrayed in 1947 because of the promises of Gandhiji and Nehru, and then we suffered a lot. Our half community was living in Pakistan and half was living in India. And because of Gandhi, we decided to join with India. Then you have seen what happened. We lost our birthplace of Guru Nanak, founder of Sikh religion. That is also in Pakistan. And many properties and loss of innocent lives also. And now our holy places has been attacked in order to teach us a lesson that you should shut up. You should not speak about the freedom about the more rights. And in this way, I would like still to bring to your kind notice, whenever you get a chance here with the ministry, please let them know the real situation, the real problem of the Sikhs. So that is my request.
I will gladly help you, because my sympathy is all on your side.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. It was wonderful.